Welcome to the Scoop. I'm Farrah.
And I'm Nicole.
And we are going to talk about today is our tracks and our, how do you want to say that? Because they don't know what tracks is.
Yeah, so our groupings, like our groups are, I guess another word would be like our classrooms.
Yeah.
And yeah, what goes on in those.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about each in, should we start from the youngest and go up?
I think that would make the most sense.
So just to give you a little bit of history, we have designed the way that our buildings are designed in a way that go from, we'll just start from maybe the younger and then kind of work our way up and why we did that, and how it works and how it's grouped in certain areas. I'm going to ask Nicole some questions too, because there's some things that have switched and of course there'll be more in the future. And we're adding on in the future. So we'll start there. So let's start with our youngest. When they first come on and we do an intake, let's say they're 2, let's say, what happens? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you do an intake. If they're age 2, then they'll probably go into what we call like our littles track, which are early learners. Originally, when we were like a very young company, we had like tracks like A and B, and that's really all that we had, meaning that like track A maybe worked on more like self-help skills like independence, and maybe track B worked on more like academic type skills. So we really only had like those 2 originally. And so now we treat through the lifespan a little bit more than we used to. So we separated that even further. A big reason for it is it didn't make sense for our older individuals to work with our younger individuals and be in the same space. And we started kind of doing group work too. So they have a social group, they have an art group, they have these different groups within their track. And so when we were kind of pairing like skill levels together, that just made sense to continue to kind of like separate that a little bit based on skill.
Yeah, that does make sense. And that's evolved quite a bit too, because we usually when we first started, we had the supervisors just running that within their area, right? And so now we even have, like at Pleasant Prairie, a designated person to run certain groups at certain times, and that's even gotten bigger, is what I just heard. So they're splitting that up even. So
yeah,
we just keep adding, I would say, and changing based on the need and where we're seeing that there needs to be more support and more area to target, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have come a long way. It's fun. It's always fun to talk about what it was and what it is. So that's our littles that you were talking about, right?
Yeah, so our littles, and we've kind of even gotten to a place where we've separated within the track itself. So the track is littles, right? And we have 3 classrooms, or 2 classrooms, where there are ages from 18 months to about 4 years of age. And so those are even separated by like some skill level based on the groups that they attend. So some of our littles or individuals that are in our littles track based on age might be working more on like attending skills or that joint attention piece. So they're in a group with the peers that work on those same skill sets. And then you have another track or group within littles that maybe is working more on reciprocal play, or those play type pieces. And so they're in a group with similar peers that work on those similar skills. And that's just so that we can target these groups and really build them to teach skills. So we do have like a group leader that goes into the littles rooms and brings in like play centers. So they do different play centers, and the play centers are geared towards what that grouping of kids needs to work on or learn. So developmentally where they're at. So we're trying to meet individuals where they're at. And not like force them into like to learn something or into a group that
It's not where they're at.
is not where they're at,
Yeah.
right? So
and
that
then
was our
keep
biggest,
building.
yeah,
Okay.
and so we keep building off of that, so they might all do play centers. And it might be the same play center, so like we have, like a play center where there's like a bin of like babies, for example, or a play center where there's like animals in a bin with like, some dirt or some like beans or whatever, like that sensory component. And they might all work on those same kind of like play center pieces, but they're all working on different skills, so.
What kind of skills? Yeah.
Yeah, so like one group might be at a place where they're doing some like give and take to their peers and that like turn taking, sharing type thing. While the other group might be working on like the joint attention, just attending to like, this is a dinosaur, this is a fish, this is a, you know, and
Yep.
working on just interacting with the items, not necessarily with their peers, but just recognizing that those items are there and what you do with them.
Okay. That makes sense. That's so cool. And how we started with, you said the one group A, B, like that's kind of how everything started. So how many groups do we have just in that age that's broken up at both
Yeah.
places, would you say? Like how many groups do we have?
So in the littles track, we have at least 2 groups that
Okay.
are broken up by skill set. Because you're
Okay.
looking at a pretty hefty age range too. Like
Yeah.
you're looking at 18 months to 4 years of age. Like even within that, they're hitting different milestones.
Yeah.
So we're looking at both those areas, and so we have separated it into at least like 2.
Okay. Yeah, because you could have an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old that really have the same skills to work on, but they're years apart. Or you could have, right? Or an
Yeah.
18-month or a 2-year-old that just needs this area more. And so age is not always, that's a hard thing to go off of.
Age is really hard in this field to go off of. Like, yes, we still separate by age, but it's more skill set than it is age. So we have like an age range, and it can be a pretty hefty age range. Like Farrah was saying, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old could have the same exact skill sets. And so they might be paired together. But we don't want like a 2-year-old and a 16-year-old could have the same
Right.
skill sets too, but we don't necessarily want them paired together.
Right.
Because of just the
Well,
physical piece of that.
Yeah. That makes sense. And we're trying to find peers that are closer in age, really, right? If we can.
Yeah, because if you can find peers closer in age, those are the peers that they're gonna transition into life with, right?
Right.
So if they're going into a school, they're gonna transition with peers of their age, they're gonna be in a classroom with those peers. So
That's part of what we keep in mind
Yeah.
for this too. Obviously, safety
Mhm.
too. You have a 16-year-old and a 2-year-old, the physical component is much different.
Yeah.
When things are occurring that, we're trying to reduce. So
Mhm.
I think that's important too, is that we keep that. Of course, we know the physicality of kids, can vary quite a bit. You can have a 4-year-old that looks like a 9 or 8-year-old or vice versa or whatever. So there's just a lot to kind of put into that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. So then what's after that?
Okay, so after that, so when they hit around like age 4, 5, you really start to think about like, okay, so developmentally, where are they gonna transition? Because those are kind of like your school age pieces. So you're looking at, okay, around age 6, you have to be enrolled in school.
Yeah.
So what skills do they need and what path in their life are they gonna take? Not that that path doesn't adjust as they learn more skills and things of that nature. But you do start to decide like, okay, at age 4 or 5, are they gonna be ready for school at age 6? Because then they're gonna go into like what we call school readiness
Okay.
program. And let's say around that age, like they maybe don't have the communication, and communication is a barrier to learning, or maybe like behaviors is a huge barrier to learning. So then we'll do maybe more of like our life skills type route.
Okay.
So that's kind of how around that age we kind of start to look at, okay,
Where we're going.
yeah, where we're going.
And that can obviously change.
And it does, yeah,
It
oftentimes it does.
I mean, we want it to, that's the
Yes.
point
Mhm.
of what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, it's just at that age, we really work on, like with the parents, like, okay, where do you where do you see them? And what are the skills kind of like left after early intervention is done?
Got it.
What are the skills that we need?
And if we're seeing someone for the first time too, that's a whole nother thing. If they haven't had early intervention and they're coming to us and they're 6, 7, 8,
Yes,
that's a whole nother kind of decision to make, right?
yes,
Depending on where they're at. So it's just a lot of, it's so individualized, which is what I love about EVA, you know, and I love about our program. It's so individualized. A disclaimer too is next month, we're gonna be inviting Marie in because this is reminding me because of the school age of what we do when kids hit 6 and legally they have to be in school. 6 is like the magic number by a certain was it September 1st, I think? I think it's September 1st by 6. When Marie has some information and wants to go over, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the things that for homeschooling and other alternatives. And so I just wanted to let you know that we're really excited to have her on the next podcast to kind of go over that. So that's the next month. But anyways, so back to that. So school age, school ready, what happens after that?
Yeah, so you're either gonna do like a school readiness program, where when you're in that track, it is focused on like being able to sit in groups, being able to do some sort of like structured, close-ended work activity. Being able to independently like kind of keep yourself busy during downtime, being able to attend to like a group leader or speaker. So those are all areas that they work on in school readiness. So we try to mock it like a classroom as much as possible. So they will have like one staff member up in front of the group and giving group instructions so that they're learning how to follow those and things of that nature. So that's kind of how that track works. They also do like, they'll do an art activity, they'll do a science activity. So it's very structured around similar groupings that you would see in a classroom.
Okay.
So that's that one. And then the other avenue would be what we call early life. So that's more of our life skills route. And so not to say that they don't work on any sort of like school readiness pieces, however, they do heavily work on communication. So they're learning how to communicate on whatever platform they communicate with, however they do that. So learning how to request, whether that be to say that you don't want to do something or that you want to leave or that you want a break, being able to like tact common objects. So labeling common things that you would see, in your environment, and being more present in your environment. Working alongside peers. They do groups and things like that, but it's more like stations. So they might do like some work bin things. They might learn how to use the toilet and request to use the toilets. They might do hand washing, feeding programs. So all of that is in early life, being able to dress themselves, things that are appropriate for that age group, because early life is more like that age 5 to probably about like 10-ish or so. And then we start thinking about what are they going to do through like puberty and things of that nature. Cause you kind of hit puberty around that time frame.
And we want them to be going in with skills, not right. If everything goes the way that we get them in and we're working on those things. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So usually the school readiness kids will transition into school, like a classroom setting within like 2 years, I would say. So they might do a little bit of homeschooling, which is what Marie will talk to us about. And then the early life, sometimes they will go into school too, and they'll transition into a classroom setting that's more early life as well.
Okay.
Or they will transition into our like older life skills group.
Okay. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so our older life skills group starts kind of when you're hitting that like puberty, like that teen kind of age group. And in those groups that you will work on, like independence is like our number one, goal. We teach a lot of leisure skills, because that's a huge life skill that they need to have, how to like occupy their time and do things that like are of interest to them. So we
Yeah.
really want to find things that they could do. Because when you're in the life skills program, we're also thinking long-term at this point into adulthood as like, okay, what skills can we teach right now so that maybe
Yeah.
you could have a job, maybe like you would be set up to be in like a group home setting, or adult day program. So we're really thinking about those things.
Yeah.
We still do like toilet training, we do hand washing, we focus a lot on hygiene, showering, face washing, toothbrushing. We do a lot of like health and safety, what's safe, what's unsafe, a lot of community-based work too. Like understanding locations that you would find in the community, what they do. We even do like mock like fire drills and like emergency situations that could happen, and they need to know how to like react to those types of things. Still work on very heavily on communication, because we also see, when you're older, and you have less communication, usually, and you're bigger, right? So the maladaptive behaviors you see are much more significant, in those age ranges. So we do work on communication because the communication, deficit piece, it causes some of the behaviors,
Yeah.
like not being able to tell us that like something hurts you, or that you are hungry, or that, you know, I'm sick, or I don't want to do this, or I don't like this.
Yeah.
So those are all big components throughout.
Yeah, that's so important. And you're hitting on some things even with like, so pre-puberty, puberty forward, that all kids need to work on, you know what I
Yes.
mean? That
Mhm.
safety and just what's happening to my body and what the heck, you know, hormones and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I think that's awesome. Cause I mean, I even
Yeah.
see that with, my own boys, you know,
Mhm.
cause I have.
And we used to do like these like this upper life skills piece, like this older age group. We used to do much older. We used to do like, they wouldn't go into this life skills program until they were 14.
You're right. Yeah, and that's,
And we adjusted that too.
I like that.
Because, I'm not gonna go into my hypothesis as to why, but, more individuals are going through these pre-puberty things earlier.
Well, and it's nice to give skills, and you talk about communication.
Mhm.
Communication is everything for
Yeah.
anyone. Because if you can even ask the question of like, I don't know, or why, or you know, what's going on, it opens up more doorways. Because if we don't, it could be anything. It could be because they are going through puberty, or they're feeling a certain way, or they're just tired, or they're hungry, or they're whatever. So communication really is everything. So the more skills, again, early intervention and up,
Yeah.
is so important, because you just have more to work with, you know, as far as, sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything.
Mhm.
I mean, that happens, right? We all do.
Mhm.
So think about a kid that has very limited, communication, and they're just having a rough day.
Yeah.
That they didn't get, or they didn't get enough sleep, you
Mhm.
know, or whatever, you know, it could be anything. It's a noise, so all those things are so important. So the more skills you have going in, the more you're gonna be able to communicate about that and not have these, you know, bigger, more significant behaviors that you were
Mhm.
just speaking about. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's pretty much like our like life skills track all the way to, and most of our life skills, once you're kind of in that track, that's kind of your pathway to go into like this adults day program kind of realm. We do have another track though that's very important to note is what we call behavior mod. And so typically, like, yes, we have some clients that transition into like a behavior mod type setting, but typically these are the kids that the schools are reaching out to say, can you please help us? Or they've already been kicked out of school, and the parents are coming and saying, please help us.
Okay.
And these are the kids that are kind of like these like pre-teen age groups a little bit. they're not older than, like, a lot of them aren't older than, like, 15-ish,
They're not?
right? They're not older than
Okay.
that, because that's kind of like going into
It's the change,
a light,
change.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like your,
But it's like your elementary, let's just call
Okay.
it that, like your elementary kids, that's kind
Okay.
of what I'm talking about.
okay,
Where academically, they don't need help academically, like, they are like, if not above, because most of
Okay.
them are above.
Yeah.
Or they're like not much below their age group academically.
okay,
And so what it is it's these maladaptive behaviors that are impeding their learning and impeding their relationships with other people. So what we'll do is we'll have this group of individuals that from 6 months to up to like 2 years,
okay.
and we'll just work on behavior, just replacement behaviors. And I say just, it's not just because it's challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
And you do need a certain skill set in order to do it, especially within that time frame.
Okay,
So all of our staff and everyone has that like skill set, and they are trained in some different techniques and some different ways to be able to work with individuals that present with high magnitude, very severe problem behaviors. Not to say that our older individuals don't. This is just a program that's very fast paced and very specific to our whole goal is get them back into school, get them back into school, get them back into the least restrictive environment.
right, makes sense.
And yeah, so our main goal is just decrease maladaptive behaviors, which does teach communication, but also like coping strategies. So we do a lot of that and then push back in.
So that's temporary. That's
It's a very
supposed to be,
temporary, it's supposed to be temporary.
okay, okay. Do you have kids or that are, it hasn't been temporary? And what do you do about that?
I have kids that will go into like adulthood.
Okay, so
They might transition to like our life skills program and then into like adulthood,
okay.
but that's very rare. I'm talking 2%.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's.
So the other, because that main purpose is strictly the behavior piece.
Okay.
Sometimes we might get them back. So sometimes
That's what I was gonna ask. So do they go in and out sometimes?
Sometimes
Okay.
we don't like that to happen. But sometimes we will push into school, they'll be successful, we'll pull out, and then they will come back. Sometimes in adulthood, sometimes much older, they'll come back,
Okay,
but yeah.
interesting. Okay. So then, okay, so you have the behavior mod, track, and then so we talked about everything up into, and then it's adult, right? That's the next.
And then adult, and then like I would love to talk about like after school too, because we
Okay,
have
yep.
lots of programs.
We do. So do after school then. Do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so another
Second.
place that some of our behavior mod kids do go to is after school. And some of our other population too will go into like our after school program. So after school is a max of 10 hours a week because we run the program Monday through Thursday evenings from 3:30 to 6.
Okay.
So that's about the max treatment they would get. So they do need to be individuals that can show progress with that limited amount of treatment time. Sometimes they get 4 hours, sometimes they get 5 hours, and then sometimes they get 10 hours a week of treatment, just kind of depending on where they're at. And we have tracks within that program that are really cool too, because we individualize that program for what age group and what milestones they're working on. So the after school is really about social skills. And we've thrown some community skills and daily living in there as well. But the main focus is social. So a lot of it, they all have one-on-ones right now, not to say that couldn't be like a group.
Right.
But right now they all have one-on-ones, but they're all in a group with other peers. And the one-on-ones really are at this point kind of stepping back and seeing what they can do independently. So we've split tracks up in there too, where we have a development track where they're still developing like foundational kind of skills a little bit. So maybe the communication is a barrier to their ability to have social interactions. So they're focusing on like what we call the foundational skills.
Okay.
And then we go into expansion. So all the track names go into exactly what goals. So now they're expanding, right?
Smart.
Yeah, so they're expanding on those foundational skills and going into now they can probably have conversations amongst peers, right? It might be one-sided conversations, but they're more in tune to relationships, what they are, how they impact their life. And then advancement goes into like having like what friends are, how to find friends, how to keep friends. So it has those advanced skills.
Yeah.
How to interpret like body language and what to do about that. So like, so how to tell that someone's not interested in what you're saying, and not just how to tell, but also what do you do now?
Does that prepare them for like the dating stuff? Is that part of what you?
Well, our teen group does a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
what you need to know first before dating is you need to know like how to keep friends, like how to maintain relationships, both like romantically and friend-wise.
Right.
Otherwise, you can date all you want, but you're not gonna keep them around. So,
Right.
yeah. So after advancement, we do have our teen group, and our teen group focuses a lot on dating,
So cool.
sexuality, sexual orientation. We talk about sexual like transmitted diseases. We talk about all of those things. We talk about drugs. We talk about a variety of areas. Budgeting, like how do you hold a job, like all of those areas.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so we made the teen group because after advancement, we were like, wow, and they still need all of this.
Right.
You know?
Right. Wow.
And there's a certain age group too. You don't wanna teach it like super, super young.
Yeah.
Cause we do go like pretty in depth on some of these things and questions are asked.
I bet you it's so fun. No,
Oh, it's so fun.
because it's so just forward, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
can just hear it like,
Yeah.
matter of fact.
Very, very, yeah, very blunt, very matter of fact conversations are had, yes.
I love it. That's
yeah.
so great.
So that's really cool.
When do the teen group then meet? Is that within the group, the after school group, or is that a separate group?
It's a separate group.
Okay, so when do they meet?
Usually when they transition out of like advancement, they'll go into a teen group. So the teen groups meet twice a week. It's about a 5-hour a week program. Because they're kind of at that developmental piece where they don't need a ton of therapy, but there's still these kind of like lingering like areas that you're going to go through in life, and that you just need to know how to work through that.
Are they one-on-one or group then?
They're in a group, but they do have one.
Okay.
But they are in a group the majority of the 2.5 hours that it takes place. Yeah.
Okay. Is the goal to, when you have somebody there for 4 days, so this full 10 hours, is the goal to fade? So you have less and less first, or is the goal to fade their one-on-one?
Okay, so the goal is to fade their hours first, because what we did is we kind of set up the tracks where like development and expansion. Usually we would want those kids to have about 10 hours a week. And then they kind of graduate, which they love graduating through the tracks. They're actually very motivated to graduate through.
Cool.
So they will.
So they know.
So they know.
They know like this is the,
And kids in expansion will actually start having them like, some of them will start like self-monitoring them.
I love it.
So that they know like, okay, I can graduate to advancement when these goals are done.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so they start working on.
I love that.
Yeah, so they'll say like, okay, I'll be in advancement in 3 months when I meet like X amount, which also means that they then decrease their hours down to 5, because advancement and teen group are the only groups. Some of the other ones do a little bit too, just based off of staff availability. But advancement and teen for sure are like 5 hours a week.
Okay.
So yeah, they'll transition throughout the program usually.
What I think would be cool, I don't know if this would just be more, because this is probably gonna be very helpful for internal,
Yeah.
more than anything, is if we broke this up and we had, like, I know we're having Maria on next month,
Mhm.
but we could even break that up and have
Mhm.
people on talking about what they do and maybe give examples or go into more depth. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, I think that's great because we do so much and we individualize so much because
Yeah.
there's 2 other tracks that we developed.
That's
just-
what I need.
Just
Like, I'm
just
learning.
just in the after school program.
Okay.
For like, you know how we have the
So
life skills,
exciting.
like we
Yeah.
have life skills during the day.
Yeah,
Well, we also brought in life skills
Of course.
into the after school program. Now, it's minimal, right?
Okay.
But we did bring in 2 groups, we call them junior mints and senior mints, and so they go through daily living, so.
love it.
Yeah, so Bridget came up with
I love it.
junior mints because she had some clients that she's like, like they need a lot of like daily living type stuff, or they're working more in like the natural environment, and they're learning things as they naturally like come about. So that was like her play on that, because again, we say, okay, when there's a need for this,
Yeah,
there's also a group that we kind of create around individuals.
I would love to hear more about each thing and about the people that are so invested in, you know what I mean, that are running this and like what you just said. So I think that would be really cool for
Yeah.
our staff too, because
Mhm.
I know there's way more coming because we
Sure
never
is.
stop.
Yeah, no,
So-
there's so much, and I think we've done a great job on creating space for everybody. And a safe space, like in a group, and we work as a team to like create these things, and so. I mean, all the seniors like have a certain like track that they run and that they hone in on like those certain areas.
Well, and I've seen people really go one area and really love it, and then they're like, oh, what about this area? Or they just, keep
Mhm.
developing that one area too, which is, I think, what sets us apart from other places, because we just keep seeing what is needed. How do we get there? This
Mhm.
worked, this didn't work, that kind of stuff, or
Yeah.
we could do it better, or whatever, add to it. So,
Mhm.
okay, that's awesome. Is there anything else about the after school then?
No, I mean, that pretty much sums up the after school,
That's
yeah.
amazing. That's really come a long way
Mhm.
and continues. I mean, there's new stuff in there that I didn't know. So after school we did, so then are we going into adult then? Is that adult? Is that
Yeah,
what
I think this is the last one I didn't really talk too much about.
Okay.
But like right now, our adult program is also split into different tracks as well. So and a lot of our adults, at least the ones we have right now, will go kind of in between tracks.
Okay.
So one of the tracks within the adult program is heavily focused on daily living, where the other one is focused very heavily on vocational and social skills, or that dating piece we're kind of talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because you will have adults who are going down different pathways. And we kind of set the foundation for that a little bit, because a lot of our adults have either like, some of them have grown up through like our program, right? Or when we have new adults come in, they are a big part of their own treatment, and they tell us what they want to do.
That's what's so, yeah.
Which is like my favorite part, is because they're very involved in their treatment. So if they're like, if the goal is that they're in a group home and that they live in a group home, then we're gonna work on a lot of those daily living pieces. We're gonna work
them
on
there.
to get them there.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
because they're gonna need to know how to like put their clothes away, how to like maybe do their laundry. They're gonna need to know how to cook certain meals. So all of those skill sets, that's what we want to primarily focus on. Not that they don't get social interaction, and because they're all in a group too.
Okay.
And not that they don't get like some of the vocational pieces, but it just like, we have to have like a focus point.
Yeah.
So we can get them down the path that they want to go,
That makes
or
sense.
that is set for them. And then we have clients that come to us that say, like, I have the ability to work and I don't know how.
Okay,
Or we have people that do work and then don't know how to pay their bills. Or people that work and live on their own and are engaging in, they have some like mental illness pieces revolving around loneliness and not having a partner and not having a
Okay.
relationship. So then we'll hone in on those pieces.
so how do you hone in on those pieces then? Is that a separate kind of, or that's just an area of one of the 2 tracks, right? Because you have 2 tracks, you're saying?
We have 2, we have a third that we've developed that currently, nobody's in right now.
And what's that?
So that is going to be focused more, I would say, on like the dating kind of pieces.
Okay,
So what we've tried to do, right now we have like daily living and we have vocational, and we've mixed in those social pieces like within it.
okay,
However, we did anticipate to have similar to what we have an after school program for the teen
okay,
for the adults. And maybe they wouldn't come, it's not a lot of hours to just talk about relationships, right? But we do have that. It's just we've kind of sprinkled it into all of the other areas versus having a group design for that, because we only
Okay.
have a couple people that would apply to right now.
okay,
At some point, I also want to make our vocational group, more integrated into the community. So that's
yeah, I
coming.
love that,
Yeah.
that's coming, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you see it emerging, we know
Yeah.
where we wanna go,
Mhm.
that's awesome
Yeah.
though. And you've, again, that 3rd track that you were talking about for the adults, you've been like, what's the word I'm looking for? You've been doing dating, speed dating and other dating things, to try to see where we need to go with
Yeah.
that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've separated it into these kind of like categories. So that we can build off of it. So it is a
Okay.
foundational thing. So like we teach vocational skills, and then we'll have this group that is all set to go into the community to like learn these skills, right? We have a group that is going into group homes. So the next part of that is like consulting more with group homes so that we can get them like, so we know, okay, all right, we're gonna have to teach them that, you know,
Yeah.
like maybe they have to learn transportation, then we gotta teach them that.
Right, that makes
Um,
sense.
so, and then the dating realm, yes, we have a couple, like I said, a couple of clients, couple of people that we sprinkle it in for. But I think I mentioned this on our adult podcast, is a lot of adults also come with a lot of mental illness surrounding some of the barriers for them in life. And so we do a lot of accepting and commitment therapy, and we do a lot of those pieces. So that's kind of a realm that can go much further. So I know I have a
Oh,
setup,
yeah.
I have a group for it, right? It's just
Wow.
that we could spend a lot more time on like
We sure could.
the mental pieces, like the like flexibility in thinking and the present moment awareness and the acceptance and those kind of areas.
And we did a podcast, I don't remember which one it was in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
It was in the beginning, acts that we talked about this a little bit more detail, but that is a big, huge area in general.
Mhm.
But that's great to bring that up too. There's so much to do. There's so many areas and you can,
Yeah.
I mean, it really, you can go on and on and on.
You gotta start somewhere though,
Yeah.
right? So like we've built this foundation, and yes,
We
we
just
know where it can go.
Mhm.
It's like these stepping stones to get there, because
Yeah.
like when you start doing like mental health, then there's other people to collaborate within that too.
For
So,
sure.
Yeah.
That's so cool. How cool.
Yeah.
Like yeah, so then you have your adults and then we're talking about, yeah, group homes and residential, and that's kind of an area that's emerging that we're looking at too.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
then we would have kind of and obviously jobs, in there too, like you were saying, and then we have really our full circle.
Yeah.
We've hit it all. It's just getting into each pocket or each track, each area, and just continuing to pull it apart and target those different areas in more depth and having commitment with teams, right?
Yeah.
And just keep going that way. So, wow, we'll look back on this and we'll be like, look at that's all done.
Yeah. That's the dream, right? Is
Yeah.
to look back one day on all of these and say, okay, like we knew where we were going and we're here, you know?
It's so cool.
The work is never done, so there's
No.
always improvements to be made to every track, to every area, to everything that we're doing. It's a journey.
It is a journey. Yeah, and it has been a lot of growing pains, you know, because we grow and change is hard.
Yeah.
For many people, especially when you don't quite know what's happening, because everybody can know everything at all times. So that can be difficult. So the trust and the connection and all the stuff we've been talking about with NVC and ACT and just in general with communication is so important. And that's what we're trying to really continue to cultivate as we're moving forward with our teams, so we can trust and move forward as a team. Because it does have to keep changing. I mean, unfortunately, that's what I love about this field is, and us, because you gotta, if you don't like something or it's not working or it can be better, then you've got to keep going.
Yeah.
Which is change.
Yeah.
It's always being a little bit uncomfortable, but going at a pace that your members aren't falling off. So
Well, you want to do it well, right?
And
Like,
yes.
you could, I mean,
we could change everything and go, oh,
yeah,
but
I mean,
what works?
we could take everybody and we could not do the process that we do, and we can just, you know.
That's a good point.
Throw things together, right? But then the quality is not there.
Yes, that's a great.
And that's,
point.
you know, and that sets us apart too. It's like, yes, we have a lot of moving parts. Yes, we have a lot of things, but the things that we do are the things that we do well. And it's the reason people come here.
Right, for sure. Cause yeah, I mean, I think we've said this in prior podcasts is, you know, everything from, you know, the 18-month or the year-olds to, you know, the adult that's been, you know, in their 50s, 60s or whatever, the sought after is the very little. And that's what everybody wants. And after a year or two, they're moving on. That's the majority of the field. And that's just such a disservice. And so we really continue to try to focus, and still obviously early intervention is we want that. But it doesn't stop there. And there's a problem with services and the amount of providers and BCBAs and just other, you know, healthcare providers, and there's a big problem. There's not enough of us. So they're getting later and later. Services are getting later and later because they're on waiting lists for years and years. So
that's not their fault.
And that's not their fault. So that's how we're trying to look at this, is again, trying to get ahead and get kids in, but also to provide for whatever it is that they need, for their lifetime. So I would say that's kind of the goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal is the lifespan, because
it doesn't stop.
Autism is a lifespan.
Right. It's not done at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah. So it looks different for everybody, which I think is why I love the field. It's so challenging, but it's different. It's never the same. You're never going to be bored. Ever. And you're always going to see something new for the first time that you've not seen, or it's different or whatever. So I think that's what's amazing about it. But yeah, we just keep looking at what's here and now and what's needed, essentially, and building on that. But I do like the fact that we don't just go, you know, like, well, what are we gonna do? And we're just gonna put this in. Everything's very intentional.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the feedback has been from like texts that come in. They're like, I didn't realize how intentional every single thing that you guys do is. And I guess I always just assume people knew that because we work so hard at it and we talk about it so much. But yeah, when we have our mentors come on, and they always say that. It's so intentional. I had no idea. So kudos to you. Kudos to us. We've, you know, continue to really keep looking at everything and seeing how can we do this different? How can we do this better? How can we keep improving, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, what it is first is like, there's a gap. And so what are you gonna fill the gap with?
I love that.
You know, and then once you fill the gap, there's improvements to be made to whatever program that you have that fill that gap. And there's always improvements to be made. And unfortunately, like the world that we live in and the insurance laws and regulations and
That too.
state and federal laws and regulations, like are a huge fight and a battle. And so that causes some change in how we do things, because we're not gonna give up on the people that we service, and we're not gonna give up on filling the gap. We just might have to like alter our way of thinking and the way that we do things so that we can still service the
Yeah.
needs.
I like that.
And that's why people say that we change things a lot. And it's really because like a lot of times our hands are tied, but what we don't do is give up. And so it's really about like, okay, we can tweak this one thing and still provide for these families. And like, that's what's important.
I like to fill the gap. That's a good way, cause it happens. They change one thing, whether that's insurance or, I mean, we have a big change right now, you know, that's occurring.
Yeah.
It's a big one too. And so how do you adjust? How do you, say, okay, that this isn't going to defeat us, or this isn't going to make us collapse? How do we do it? So like RBT, so like there, and we knew, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time, but it's actually here. So
Yeah.
that's the thing, and it's just gonna make us stronger and think about clinical doing it well. I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah. It's always about doing it well. It's not about always doing it the best. It's about doing it well, because if you do it well, then you are doing it the best.
I think we just came up with some slogans or
We did.
some lines. We gotta write these
We
down.
gotta write down the lines. Yeah.
Fill the gap. It's not about doing it what did you just say? It's not about doing it the best, it's doing it well, but doing it well means you are the best.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, Carmen, are you listening? Write these down. We can put these up. We can put them behind us. But it's true. This is what I love about our podcast is it makes you really think, like, why do you do what you do? Why are we doing what and if we don't know why, then we probably should think of, okay, that is why. Yeah. So, it's really exciting. And so like next week, Marie will come with us and kind of talk about that, school age and what we do. And that was a huge gap. I mean, it always still is, but we've come up with so many solutions for families. So we can fill that gap, while we're getting to the next part.
Yeah.
And that's why this is more of an opinion. I think some of it's fact, but why you see other ABA providers stop, because they're like, I don't want to deal with that, and the money is different, and it's all over the place. You have less hours, and so I'm done. So that's why you got to be super young, because there's no distractions, and we can pull you in, and it's no, not this extra stuff. So that's one area that we've worked on for years, and years of how we fill that gap.
Yeah.
I think that's the new thing, fill in the gap. So, maybe that's not so new, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at, and we're in this end piece that we're really working hard on. So we'll be excited to talk about that in the near future, and maybe some other areas that you mentioned today, we can pull out and do just specific things like we've been doing. You did the adults, Marie can do this part, and I think the after school would be very cool to talk about, because there's a lot within there that I didn't even know that you had developed even further. So I think that would be really cool. And James wants to garden next year so maybe he can talk about his gardening.
It's been a couple of years since we've done the garden. We used to do the garden. We would grow like cucumber. They would make like cucumber salad and stuff. They would pickle them and stuff, which was cool.
So cool.
Yeah, and they learn a lot from that too. They have to take care of it. It's not something the adults do. They do it.
That might be a really cool area to talk about. I mean, because we have volunteers that wanted to be helpful in that area. So I got some ideas about that.
You need, like, in order to have these programs be successful, you do need like teams of people that have, some buy-in and support for those, areas.
And motivation.
And motivation to like work with those populations and think outside of the box, to do some of these things.
And we talk about this constantly. It's really like, remember why you started and the joy and what you get out of it. There's an intrinsic motivation with whatever you're doing, or there should be. You shouldn't be just, I'm doing this because this is what I do. You really want to go back to like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And what do I get out of this too? Because we get stuff out of this. We get this, for me, it's pure, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I want to watch others, because it's fun, and it's exciting to me when you watch somebody else grow and hit their milestones, or you watch the joy come out of them, like something, it clicks, like, and then you watch all that. That's what I want for every single person, is to see that and know that work is fun. It can be hard. It can be tough. You can have days that you're questioning yourself, or even weeks sometimes, but it's really about like, this can be fun and there's a purpose. I think purpose is such a big thing. If you don't have purpose, it's tough. I mean, that's kind of where it is. So anyways, I think it's cool because you see people, I'm just thinking of James in the gardening, because he's like, I really want to do that. And I'm like, all right, so
I mean, it's set up.
it's great. Yeah, let's do it.
I think pulled the weeds out recently.
Well,
that's good.
So, but again, it's groups of people, it's commitment, and that's what I think is so important. What we continue to do is like, where's the commitment and where's the pathway for you? So you want to commit, right? And you're having fun and that joy. So, well, good. I think that wraps everything up. Thank you for listening, and we're excited to show staff and have this be something that can be listened to over and over again, and then we'll be able to go back and update, and it's just really exciting. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.